Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and this is Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. I'm Wayne Tuttle, your host once again. Please hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, check out our website, superstitionmountains.com. Cool stuff we've gotten. Thank you, David and Lacey. I've been waiting for the time to basically present this shirt. Today's video was actually not the video I was going to do. It was a video that was called Tom Child's Statement Items of Lost Treasures, and it was actually done in 1923, I believe, and it was a number of statements. We have the original statements, and then they did some corrections, wrote in corrections, and then typed it out. Never made it to a magazine article that I know of that I could find, but I thought it was really cool because it was this guy in southern Arizona talking about all these treasures and things he'd found. And Trevor, basically, I told him the idea, said, how about if I sit here and read this? And Trevor, that went over Trevor like being in an elevator and there's a warm fart. And so that is not the story we're going to tell today. Because I thought, well, it's a good story. And Trevor just continually just gave me the look of like, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. So instead, we go with a different story. And that story I actually came upon because I was just going through some files, and I saw one that had a ridiculous title, and it was the Vampire Bat Mine. And I thought, one, I don't think there's vampire bats in Arizona. There might be over the next few years. They're migrating slowly north out of Mexico. But I don't know of any vampire bats in Arizona. And I did some research and found out. So it could have been they were mistaken for what they were, or it was just a cool thing added in. But the story comes from a number of different sources. So I was able to kind of read through all these different versions of the story and realize they didn't differ that much. So it had to be probably something relevant or something honest or truthful to it. This takes place in the Baba Cavara Mountains. Now, if you're wondering where that's near Arivaca. If you're going south from Tucson, there's Arivaca Junction, which goes down to Nogales, but if you hit the junction, you'll end up in Arivaca. So it's midway between Tucson and Nogales, kind of west of there. Out kind of towards, but not that close to the Baba Cavara foothills. Those are a lot of mouthfuls. But the story takes place out in that area. And this is the story of, there's this old Tohono O'odham. In the stories, if you're ever looking at the stories, you'll see it says Papago, but we do not want to refer to the Tohono O'odham as bean eaters, so we refer to them as the Tohono O'odham, or we'll just refer to him as the Medicine Man today. And he comes in, and during the early 1800s, there was quite a bit of placer mining on the east side of the Baba Cavara Mountains. And everybody was coming in with gold and this and that. There was a lot of mining activity. And this old medicine man would come into town and pay for his supplies and his things for home with gold nuggets. So this went on for years, but in the late 1880s, okay. This went on for years, but in the late 1880s, the placers had kind of dried up. There had been rumors, a number of Yaquis in the area talked that there had been an old Spanish mine up in that area, but nobody knew where it was. It had been quite productive. So everybody had searched, hadn't found this old lost mine, but gold dries up, but the medicine man keeps coming into town with gold nuggets, and it makes people curious. So people try to follow him because he comes in for his supplies. His family comes into Tucson for the fiestas. He seems to be doing quite well, and they're trying to figure out, well, where is he getting this from, this continual source? So they're trying to follow him around, but all he does is go from his house to the stores to trade in his gold for supplies and goes home. And they watch him for years, and they just give up. They can't figure out where is this guy finding this gold. Well, then it gets even, the mystery deepens more and puzzles people because he moves his house from the east side of the Baba Cavara Mountains to the western side, on the far side. And he continues to bring in the same nuggets, and they're all just kind of puzzled, can't figure it out. So many years go by, and the storekeeper in Aravok is there one day, and the medicine man comes in, and he's trading, and he just turns to him and says, "Hey, I don't want to pry, but we've known each other many, many years, and you've always brought in this. I've never asked any questions, but where's this all coming from? You know, just in general, do you have a placer? What is this?" The old man pauses for a few minutes and then tells him, "Well, I'll tell you, because I'm getting very old, and I don't think there's any harm in it." He said, "Many, many years ago, I was hunting deer, and I was in the eastern Apache Mountains, and I was going up this long drainage. And I got very, very tired. It was a nice day, and there was a spot on this rock, and there was a little shade, afternoon shade in that spot. So I sat down and was just relaxing, looking around, and he said it was just a beautiful view, nice breeze. He said I was just relaxing. And then he said, off just above me, I heard something. I looked back, and there were these bats coming out of this crevice. And he said they were these large silvery vampire bats is what he refers to in the story. It's always referred to as silvery vampire bats. I don't know if vampire bats are silver, and I know there are silver bats in Arizona, but they're usually in northern Arizona, so I'm not quite sure. It could be migratory. But anyways, he describes them as vampire bats, and he says they come out of this crevice, and he's watching them. And so he decides to go up and investigate where they're coming out of. There must be a cave or something, and he just wants to check it out. So he said he worked his way up, got up there, and he realized it wasn't a cave or anything. It was this crevice where there must have been a mine tunnel or something, and it had fallen in, and he's looking down into it as far as he possibly can, and he makes a torch out of dried ocotillo, and he sticks it down in there and sees there's a tunnel down in there and some timbers. And he realizes what has happened is this crevice or crack had opened up, and the bats were going in and out of these mine tunnels through there. Well, as he's doing this, he can feel air coming out. So he knows there's another opening somewhere because he can feel this air pushing him in the face. So he figures he'll just start walking around the area on his way out and kind of look around. And sure enough, about 100 feet below, he finds this old timbers and stuff that had collapsed in, just enough that he can tell, oh, there was a mine at it here. So he moves a few things, he finds there's a small opening, and he makes another torch, and he goes in. He goes into this tunnel, and he says he starts walking in, and he sees all kinds of mining tools, manos and metate is off to the side, and things are kind of stacked and leaning against the walls like somebody had been working there. And he's looking at it all, and he's kind of curious and puzzled. And he starts working his way back, and there's more stuff, and then finally he sees all these leather bags. And he said there was quite a few of them just laying there, large leather bags. And he looked at them, opened one up, and saw they were full of gold. It was pieces of ore and gold. And he said there was ore piles in the tunnel as well, like hadn't even been worked out. And he realized, man, this must have been some place where they were mining in the area and they stored stuff here. And he was puzzled why they hadn't retrieved anything. There was no bodies or nothing anywhere in the area, or nothing he knew of. So he went a little further, and he said there was a few gold bars, but he was kind of creeped out. He said, you know, the Spanish had been long gone. He wasn't feeling really hot being in here, so he was feeling a little superstitious. So he decided to leave, but on his way out, he looked down and thought he'd lived a good life. He'd done well for others and treated others well. He said he'd always been an honest man, and he thought no one or nothing would look down on him for taking a bag of gold. He probably justifiably felt, he said, maybe this was a thing saying, here, take care of your family and so forth in your older age. So he took the one bag, and he said, that's what I did. And I went down the hill, and ever since then I went home. I took the bag, I emptied it out into an olla, and I had the olla buried in the corner of my home. And he said, when I need something, I uncover it, and I take some gold, and I cover it back up. And he said, I've been living on that. There's enough still for my family. I'll let them know. But no, he says, I've been living off that one bag all these years. Storekeeper's like amazed, and they talk for a while. The old Indian says, I don't know if there's any harm in it. He says, you go down here on the eastern side of the mountains, and he kind of explains the drainage. And he says, when you get up in there, the best thing you can do is don't go too far up, but about a quarter of the way up, and then just wait for the bats. And when you see the bats come out, you'll know that's where the mine is. And then you follow about 100 feet below that, and you'll find the opening where I went in. Storekeeper goes, good, thank you very much. They part, that's it. Storekeeper then decides to make plans to go out there. He's going to have someone watch the store. He gets a burro, a couple burros. He gets some supplies. He figures he's going to clean out that opening. He'll go in. He's not sure how greedy he's going to be, but he's going to go in definitely to get some more of those gold bags and those gold bars. Tells no one else of this story. He makes his preparations, he goes out, and just as he's approaching the eastern slopes of the Bavakar, the old Indian comes out. And he sees him, and he goes, oh, aho. And they're talking for a minute, and the old Indian tells him, you've wasted your time. He said, I went home and I had a dream, and it was a bad dream, and I decided then that I shouldn't have told anyone about this story. So he said, I went up, and the bats will die because I covered the holes up, and they're sealed. The bats will die in the cave. There's no way for them to escape, and no one will ever do that. I don't want this, I just decided this shouldn't fall anyone. Storekeeper obviously is distraught, goes back. Now in the eastern Kavara, there are old settlements, very old settlements. There's some foundations and a lot of graves in those areas. So there was old Spanish communities in those areas, so there obviously was, and plus with the placer mining later, there was significant gold in those mountains, but whatever they found placering played out, and no one's relocated this mine. I found it a very interesting story. The vampire bat thing doesn't really play too much into it. Maybe that was just a tagline to help sell the story. But I think John Mitchell and others talked about this story in brief. And I found it interesting. If I'm ever down that area, I probably will go back up in there just to take a look at the lay of the land. I'm sure more than a few people have looked for the mine. I looked on the internet. Nothing YouTube, no stories of it. So I found it's one of those stories that you could actually go out, spend some time looking for, and actually maybe find something. Because it doesn't appear it was that popular, and it's not been redone. So it's a good lead. There are maps with a couple of the different articles. I think Mitchell's story has a map of the area. But you can find the area. It's I'm trying to think of the town south of that's south of there. But it's along a highway, I'm sure. There's several ranches out there. I don't know if the story's even popular. It might be good. Take a day and just drive around and ask people about some of the stories they've heard about that. Do a little plastering and check a few things out and see if there's anything you find on the eastern slopes of the Bavakar Mountains. Well, there you go. Another great Arizona treasure hunting story. Thank you to David and Lacey for the shirt. I'm sorry it took so long before I worked it in, but a lot of times we jump into these things and they just kind of happen. So I don't even know if I need to say my catchphrase now, but I guess I should to wrap things up. Remember the rendezvous, November 14th, 15th, and 16th. We're getting things lined up. Here in a few weeks, we'll probably start announcing some of the people that will be guest speaking and some of the lineup. We're going to try to have something through the day. So up in the Big Ramada, we'll have a number of people speaking and things happening for those who wants to sit around. If you just want to quietly sit in camp or come in and out and visit and kind of hear some of these other stories or hear some of the information, Woody Wampler will be there to teach you how to pan and prospect, which is a great idea. But anyways, and then we'll have a break, we'll have dinner, we'll set up, we'll cook dinner in the Big Ramada. We'll have our normal chili with hot dogs, so you can have chili, a hot dog, a chili dog. If you want, you can just eat a bun and cheese. Anyhow, and then we'll have our evening program later. So it should be something through the whole day. I would recommend to someone just come out for the day and just kind of come out and relax, enjoy, spend the time in the Big Ramada. There's plenty of great stories circulating, but there'll probably be something for everyone that day, and the weather should be cooler. So thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We're up in the 110s, I think, the rest of this week, so everybody else try to stay cool because we are not. But until the next time, and have a great rest of the week, remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle, you're not, and this was Chasing Legends.